everyone. Hi, how are you?
Good.
How are you today?
Good, thank you.
I am Livia and I write for Cultura Pop. I'm from Italy and I'm so glad to be with you guys today. Let's say I don't know, I know we don't have much time to talk all together and it makes me always so sad because I have a lot of questions to ask you and curiosities, but I'd like to start with something that is so, I don't know, I care about. And I would like to start with you, Tande, but of course, any one of you can, I would be so glad if every one of you could say something. I'm a big fan of animation, and I'm always so sad when people still think that it is something just for kids or even children. I would like to ask you, how do you face it, and in which way this TV show can fight this silly belief?
Guillermo del Toro at the Oscars said animation is film, right? It's people treat it like a genre or like you said, like it's limited to kids, but it's a form of art. It's a form of storytelling. And I think how we fight it is by literally doing what we did with the anthology, where we invited directors to tell stories however they wanted it, using their favorite animation styles or styles that really extended what they wanted to say with their films. And then the storytelling, like Disney Plus was very intentional about making sure that people from age 9 to 99 could watch the stories. So what the characters are going through in the films are things that people cross-generationally can experience. So I think audiences of all ages have the opportunity to watch this gorgeous art and then these really powerful emotive stories and to be entertained at the same time.
Thank you. I don't know if some of you want to say something. When you work with animation, how do you face with like, it's I think it's a silly belief, and I'm so kind of disgusted when I see that it's still so strong. So I would like to ask you to I don't know if...
So I think the fact that that a lot of people still see animation as being for children means that there's really this power that is lying in animation, because it's almost as if you can hide or like include a lot of symbolism. You can include a lot of really powerful messages within animation, and people are not necessarily consuming it in the same seriousness that they consume live action. So you can have political issues, you can have social issues, you can have environmental issues, you can have so many things that are included in your film, but because animation is not considered as I think to the point as live action, you're able to send really strong messages without governments involving themselves. And I think this is really powerful in terms of looking at the spaces in which we are working. So there are some films that have been made in Kenya, for example, that were looking at queer culture, that had topics like about skin bleaching, like different things that have been made about human trafficking, for example, that were done with animation, and they weren't censored. Their directors were able to produce these films and to put them online and to share them with the world, and they weren't censored. However, films about the same topics made by directors using live action, the directors found themselves being, chased by the government. They were put in jail at some point, and I think that we shouldn't underestimate the power when people do not see you coming, and there is a seduction to that. It's almost like a wolf in sheep's clothing. So if people have these beliefs, it's on them, but there's also a power that we can play with. Because they're not expecting us to have important topics.
Thank you.
Yes.
I would like to ask you also, this. Like, I watched the episodes, of course, and the stories are so different from each other, but at the same time they are so organic. And I would like to ask you, how did you find a balance between each other? I mean, how did you work all together for this TV show to let it be so like, I can feel like harmony, and this is very organic. So I'm curious about, how did you work all together?
I think when the pitch went out, all the directors had to answer the same question, right? So all the directors had to tell a story set in the future, have a story with an optimistic perspective, and have a story that's science fiction. So I think those were the unifying ingredients. But I think spirituality is something that is central to our identity, and I think everybody wanted to explore how that can translate in the future. So these things did happen organically, like the common threads or the overlaps. No one mandated them, no one asked for them. In fact, in some instances, we were even asking directors, we're like, hey, that one's hair is exactly the same, whatever, you know. So yeah, these things did happen organically, and I don't think I think we shared each other's material, or the directors shared each other's material at key points, but it wasn't like, hey, you know.
Yeah, we weren't working. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I was waiting for the
No.
camera. We weren't working like I mean, it was also during a time we're working mainly online, but none of the directors weren't working together on the day-to-day avenues. We had some one-on-one sessions that were really great, and you know, some little meetings here and there to catch up and update, but for the most part everybody was kind of in their own corners working on their films, and that's what made it so amazing when it all came together and we saw some of these common threads. And I think it really makes for like a beautiful example of I was just thinking, you know how we say Africa's not a country, right? But we're all connected, and I think the anthology shows that. Like, you know, there was all these different pockets and corners, we were all doing our own thing, but we were all still very much connected, and it shows in the series of films put together.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know if you, Tafatwa, would like to say something.
I think everything that has been said has been perfect. I mean, it's like, how do I add to some so articulate and so great? I think there's just a lot to be said. I think there is a lot of similarities between the different stories, for sure. But I think part of what we wanted to do is show that Africa is not a country, and there is so much diversity. I mean, if you take a country, I'm assuming you're from Italy, I could be wrong, but I mean, even in Italy, I'm sure there's a lot of diversity in the storytelling based on, you know what I mean?
North, south.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And you're one,
Yeah, sure.
and you're one country, but we're a continent. So you can imagine the sort of diversity that's there. So I think part of it is making people lean into what's authentic about where they come from. And with that, you get this tapestry of harmony, which is, but it's not homogenous, but it's all coming from the same spirit. And I think it's a very beautiful thing. And yeah, just with the hair alone, if you look at the hair throughout the different, I think there's certain things you can see that already tells you a story, and it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, and I seriously, I really appreciate it, and you can see it when you watch this TV show. So even if there are some a lot of stories with different characters, different backgrounds, and also different, let me say, a storyline, because maybe some episodes talk about family, some others talk about destiny and finding themselves. So I was curious about how did you find this balance, because it's amazing watching 10 episodes so different, even for the style. You know, it's the first thing you notice when you approach to this TV show, and I was curious about how did you find this harmony altogether. So thank you very much. And I think I have a bit of time for one last question. I would like to ask you, how did you choose the different style of animation? I mean, did you imagine something like that before working on the story, or it was something that you decided like later or during the working time?
Well, for me, first time directing into the space, I went, I'll call 2D old school in this instance in terms of what I grew up with and what I loved. So I wanted to exist in a 2D space as I continue, you know, my journey directing in animation. So that's why I chose it, as well as my characters and the world that came about. It just spoke 2D. From a textural perspective, from movement, from general visuals, 2D was what fed it the most. But it was mainly just because it was my first time stepping in, and this is where I felt comfortable, and I did want a little throwback to the 2D life.
So I've been making short animated films for a while, and I really enjoy making mixed media productions. So this is including mixing, you know, pixelation, hand-drawn animation, After Effects, stop motion. And this was just such a beautiful opportunity to be able to work with a studio like Blink Ink in London, and to be able to take my mixed media interest to a completely new level. So I work with CGI, I work with 2D, and then we also have a stop motion set in my film. And each of these worlds is responding to the emotional space that the characters are living in. So it felt appropriate that one world will be CGI, one world will be 2D, and one world will be stop motion. It's also reflecting how these worlds have been created by the deities that are controlling them. Yeah.
Wow. For us, so for our film, a big part of it was around performance. So we animated on twos, so that you could really feel the performances of the characters, because that's what we wanted to really focus on, because relationships were very important to us, and we knew that to have authentic moments, you really had to have performances that could really grab the audience. So we did it on twos. We went with a pipeline that would, because we had a lot of different sets, so we went with a pipeline that could really give us the sets that we needed, because we knew a big part of our film was creating that juxtaposition between Great Zimbabwe as ruins versus a futuristic version of that. And that took a lot of world building for it to feel believable. So we went with a Unreal Engine pipeline, because that would give us just something that we could, a pipeline that'll let us achieve the look that we needed to sell the story.
Guys, thank you very much for this talk. I have to say goodbye to you, but seriously, thank you so much, and it was amazing for me. And I wish you all the best for this TV show and your career. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Driving me crazy.